Where do you need to stop striving and doing things in your own strength and learn to become unhurried, uncomplicated, and undone? I'll find out in today's Spacious Room episode.
Experiencing a small contained faith? Tired of settling for less? Well, this podcast is going to help you live out your faith in a spacious room. Because you were made for bigger things.
Well, hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of Spacious Room. And I want to talk today about being unhurried, uncomplicated, and undone. Well, I don't mind saying to you, my dear friend, over the past couple of years, I've learnt, well, if ever so slowly, to become less hurried, less inclined to complicate things, and not fret about all my not enoughness. Yes. That is a word now. I have just made it up. You see, the more times I consistently choose to bring my authentic self to Jesus, the more I can lean on him with all my insufficiencies as he reminds me that his all-sufficiency covers my need to hurry, to complicate, and to try and piece every bit of my life together myself. And learning to become unhurried, uncomplicated, and undone means we've learned to trust in our faith walk. We've learned to trust God, regardless of the outcome, regardless of the circumstances we find ourselves in, regardless of the situations. We've learned to trust in him. And this gift of choosing to live an unhurried, uncomplicated, and undone life gives you the capacity to wait well and helps you to form an awareness of the transitions you need to go through to see God's promises fulfilled in your life. And when writing, Tom Montelliwan, he suggests that transition cues, as in writing, are phrases or changes in the narrative that set up and prepare a reader for a progression or shift in the story. And he goes on to say that as subtle or as obvious as an elephant sitting in the corner of a room, he says that's what transition cues and phrases can be like when writing and when the reader reads a book. And spending some unhurried, uncomplicated time with God causes you to become undone. And I was thinking about all that, and I was thinking about what Tom was saying about writing and transition cues and phrases. And I thought about these subtle cues, and I thought God has laid out things like cues and phrases and transitions that we're going to either ignore or we're going to be totally ignorant to and unaware of because we've not spent time in his presence. And they become as obvious as an elephant sitting in the corner of a room, like Tom suggests. And I know you're thinking, well, that's great, Wendy. Unhurried, uncomplicated, undone life. Sounds awesome. I mean, you know, I don't live on a desert island sipping tropical punches all day long and just watching the waves and the world go by. It's like, who are you kidding? I have small kids. I have, a full-time job. I have things to do. I'm busy. This unhurried, uncomplicated, undone life just sounds like a pipe dream. Have you gone completely crazy, Wendy? Well, yes, this all seems really hard. I know. And I've no time for pie in the sky, make-believe notions that, that highlight my insufficiencies. Thank you very much, Wendy, and trying to keep it all together. Well, my friend, that's just the point, you see. I've learnt this because in Matthew 11:28-30, it says, "Are you tired, worn out, burnt out on religion? Come to me." This is Jesus saying, "Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Unforced rhythms of grace. And he doesn't lay anything on us that is heavy or ill-fitting, but he's asking us to keep company with him, and you're going to learn to live freely and lightly. He's not saying, let's just run away and live on a desert island somewhere. He's saying, learn the unforced rhythms of grace. And here, Matthew, in the scriptures, he's giving away the secret to the unhurried, uncomplicated, undone life. He's saying, come away with Jesus, walk with him, work with him. Because relying on your own strength, it can never lead us to the unhurried, uncomplicated, undone relationship with Jesus, because we'll just keep getting in the way of a progress. And when that happens, we get off balance, off kilter, and we bring God down to our level of how it's all going to roll out. We're the ones in control, and we're just going to figure it out and squeeze Jesus in where we can over our day. But Bill Johnson puts it this way: when we only obey what we understand, we then have a God that looks a lot like us. He's our size. Well, we know that God is far, far, far bigger, far wiser than ourselves. And the more we posture, the more we position ourselves in his presence, the more we'll trust his leading through all the transitions of our stories. And remember, he's not only the author of our faith, but God is the finisher of our faith. However, we need to run and lose everything that so easily ensnares us so we can run with endurance the race marked out before us, as it says in Hebrews 12:2. And this is where we preserve energy in learning to come to Jesus, get away with Jesus, walk with Jesus, and work with Jesus. So his presence and communion teaches us to live an unhurried, uncomplicated, and undone life. Even in the busyness, even in whatever is happening in your world, you can learn to live in these unforced rhythms of grace. And Eddie Melson puts her 2 pence in here when she comes up to deciding who will be dictating the narrative of your story. And she says the enemy has an army of storytellers and scribes that are telling a different story. And I totally agree. Because you know which voice is narrating your story when you've spent consistent, unhurried, uncomplicated time in God's presence and his word. So don't fret, my friend, if you've got a little off course, because God will be right there, patiently waiting for you until you get tired and worn out of doing things in your own strength. I know, I've totally got the t-shirt, the tote bag and the mug. I've got it all. But we got to learn in these unforced rhythms of grace, we learn to not get unhurried, and life doesn't get as complicated and you become undone. And it's all about the surrendering, really. And it's not about spending hours and hours and hours in, I haven't got hours and hours in my day, but we need to be intentional with coming to Jesus, because he says, come away with me, get away with me, walk with me, work with me. And that is an intentionality in that. That's not just going to happen. We have to be intentional. We have to posture and position ourselves. And then we learn to rest in that unhurried, uncomplicated, undone life. And we learn to stop striving. We learn to stop doing things in our own strength. And we learn to rest in God's presence for a while. So where have you got a little bit off balance, a little bit off kilter? Where have you brought God down to your level and said, well, this is how it's going to roll out? And has he got to your size, rather than looking at God and saying, wow, you're bigger than what I'm trying to box you in. You're bigger, and I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to trust you with every circumstance. I'm going to trust you with every transition that you are moving me into, in the phrases and the changes, and I'm going to listen to you, because when I spend time with you, God, I can hear your voice. You're going to narrate my story, and I'm going to see the promises fulfilled in my life. And each transition and phrase is the progression. It's the shift in your story. And I hope that you will spend some time, even if it's just snippets to start with, just spend some quality time with God and just lay it all down. Just bring your authentic self, and you will see that you will find rest, and you will learn to live unhurried, uncomplicated, and undone. And I'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening. To catch all the latest from me, you can subscribe to my website, thebigvoiceonline.com, or follow me on Instagram, Wendy J. Parker Writer. See you soon.